this public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 24-25 budget to order. It is 6 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday, September 25th. Before I turn it over to the city manager and Mr. Wiggin for the presentation, let me go ahead and state that obviously we are operating under unusual circumstances with a potential Category 4 hurricane to make landfall directly with Tallahassee in the path tomorrow afternoon. I also realize that we have a lot of work to continue doing until the storm gets here. By law, we are hosting this workshop so that we can pass the budget and be ready to rock and roll on Tuesday, October 1st. We are going to take care of the budget itself. I know that we have publicly advertised a second item on the public hearing, but Madam Attorney, do we need to take action to postpone that, or can we simply state we're postponing to the next meeting?
I believe we can just simply state that we are postponing that until the next meeting.
Excellent. This workshop is simply on the budget and the budget itself as proposed. With that, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll get right to it. This is, as you mentioned, the public hearing on the budget it's the second of two public hearings. 2 weeks ago, you received a presentation from Robert Wiggin, our Director of Resource Management. We have a similar presentation today we would like to share. We'll take a little deeper dive into the CHSP funding that's part of this particular meeting each year, and look for your direction. And then Robert will pass it to the city attorney to walk us through the very prescribed steps required by state law to pass the budget. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to Robert Wiggin.
Excellent. Robert.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor, commissioners, appointed officials, and members of the public. As was stated, tonight we're conducting the final fiscal year 25 budget adoption process. I will say that the process for the public hearing doesn't give a lot of flexibility in how we approach it. We have 7 days that we could have postponed it. We had to advertise 2 to 5 days. That puts us right in the recovery phase, and so there weren't great choices. So I do appreciate you being here tonight. If I could get the slides pulled up. May not have made it to presentations, but I believe you all have copies and are very familiar with most of the background. I'll give the computer operator a few minutes and start with some remarks. We will be asking you to approve a $1,210 million budget that has an operating budget of $908 million, a capital budget of $302 million. It's unchanged since September 11th with those numbers and follows the 9-month development process that we've been working through. The budget includes, with the legislative opportunity we had during the year to implement the school zone speeding actions to protect our youth, an additional revenue amount of $503,000, which enabled the city to roll back the millage rate from 4.45 mils to 4.42 mils. As we developed the fiscal year 25 budget, we balanced that budget with nearly $3 million in expense reductions.
Robert, if you can just use the projector, we'll do it the old-fashioned way here. I think that'll work fine. He'll turn it on for you.
As I mentioned, here's the $1.2 billion budget, the legislative opportunity to reduce the millage rate from 4.45 to 4.2 mils. As far as the budget balancing process that we went through, there were $3 million in expense reductions, fuel hedging, consolidating work groups, transitioning to cloud-supported systems, and then organizational efficiencies in the offices of the appointed officials. We also noted that we've realized about $300 million in grant funding since 2020 which is almost the amount of the property taxes that have been collected in that same period of time. Again, our dedication to leveraging local dollars while keeping costs low for the public. Some of the features of the budget, as you're familiar with, it includes the new officers that were put in place last year, and technology continues, and then it continues investing $8 million in public safety programs. Those programs are very familiar to us and listed there on the slide. The fiscal year 25 budget, as we bring it forward today, also recommends the local citizens review teams identification of programs for CHSP of $2.6 million. I'll let Assistant City Manager Ojitayo speak to some details of the CHSP process.
Thank you. Awesome. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Pleased to be here before you to highlight, as we do every budget cycle at the second hearing, the specific funding that you appropriate for CHSP. As you know, CHSP is our Community Human Service Partnership. This is a partnership we have with Leon County. It used to include United Wave, as some of you may remember that, but currently we are the two partners, and it is your primary vehicle for allocating funding for agencies that provide direct human services. Each year, we have a very robust cycle. We have actually a 2-year funding cycle, but we make an allocation annually. So today's action will be focused on FY25, but the understanding for agencies and the program partners is that it would be an equivalent amount of funding for the second year as well for FY26. Thank you. The cycle for the CHSP program begins early in the year. We put out an RFP, we open a portal. Several agencies, new and mostly existing agencies, put in an application. Probably one of the more robust parts of it is that we have dozens of citizen review members that we assign to the various categories of the team. They make their recommendation of funding amounts, and both the city and the county commission separately take up this similar action of accepting their recommended awards for the agencies and authorizing us to enter into contracts with them. The program also includes an appeals process where any agency that feels like there's been any kind of misappropriation or anything done where they want their case heard can appeal to the city and the county, and this year we have had no appeals. So we're very pleased to present to you in the agenda item a recommendation of what the Citizen Review Team has recommended, which maintains the level funding for the CHSP program as we have pre-ARPA. You will remember that about 2 years ago, we created an additional category for the homelessness services that consolidated some of the previously funded agencies in different categories, as well as some new service areas. We had, in the last funding cycle, appropriated one-time ARPA dollars, but continuing with your direction to maintain level funding for CHSP as we had previously done before the ARPA cycle, and also continue with your prioritization of homelessness services in the community. We've worked with our partners to rebalance the 11 categories with that same level of funding. So that allocation was provided to all the citizen review teams as they began their deliberations back in May and June. What you have before you and what we would want direction from you is, okay, you can see this, and I think it's all in your information packet as well too. What we want to put before you, there we go, is that based on the rebalancing of the various funding categories that includes the new homeless services category, there's some teams that received a little increase and some that received a decrease. That difference in net is about 227,000 of those that increased and those that decreased. The commission has at least 2 options, and of course you always can provide some other direction. The first allocation is that you accept the citizen review team's recommendation that maintains the level of funding, or if you would so please, if it's the will of the body, you may increase the CHSP budget by $325,212. And what that does is increase the funding back to the prior allocation funding for those categories that received a decrease. And of course, we're available to answer any questions or provide any details on any other direction that you might have. This is presented before you in consideration of the Citizen Reviews team's work and in conversations with our partners, and understanding that, if there are limitations, but of course, we serve at the pleasure of the board. So if you would give us direction, I believe at this time, that's something that we can incorporate in the remainder of the budget actions today. The way that we might fund that increase of $325,000 is to reappropriate any remaining ARPA dollars that previously would have been assigned to other programs, but that's something we can do within our existing budget without having to increase the millage rate or to significantly disrupt some of the other areas that we have planned for human services. So commissioners, those two options are in front of you and that's available to you, but we're also open to any other direction that you may have.
Okay, Madam Attorney, I am interested in addressing this. Is this the appropriate
Yes.
time to do so?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So if I could, if you
Yes,
want to bring a motion and then have the discussion, we could do it that way, yes?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd like to make the
So-
motion as the mayor to increase the CHSP budget by $325,212 to restore category funding for the prior year allocation. Understanding that there's a second to the motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. I know that there's a longer community conversation needs to take place about, the end of ARPA funding and the fact that we have added new categories and how does that impact the process moving forward. Let me also thank the Citizens Review team for all the hard work that they have done, knowing that they put in a lot of time and effort, and by no way does this reflect upon the work that they have done. But I just think that we need to have more of a holistic conversation moving forward, and for the purposes of today, I am interested in seeing the increase in the CHSP process budget. So that is the motion that's been seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to say that I do plan to support this as well, and I agree that there does need to be a longer conversation and more prep work to prepare for what is to come or not to come in the future, and we want to make sure that we cause no harm in these organizations because they are the ones, these are our partners to help us keep our city growing strong and moving along together. And so I absolutely support and agree with that and look forward to having some additional conversation about how we can keep the level of funding balanced or at least give some headway to agencies prior to the budget cycle that something might be being reduced or what have you. I think that in some of the conversations that I've had with some folks, this was kind of they weren't anticipating, weren't expecting this. And so I think we need to do what we've just said here is put these things back in place and match our partners across the street because our partners across the street understand, kept their funding at the same level. And so I think that it's only fair that we do the same. Thank you.
Any further comment, Commissioner Matlow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll echo those comments and be more direct. I don't want to see a reduction in any category of services coming at the 11th hour again. I was completely blindsided by this in this meeting, and I find that unacceptable. I do want to say both CHSP and our arts organizations are the only categories of our budget that we haven't seen increases over the last 10 years. Every department, just by the nature of expenses, our budgets are increasing and increasing and increasing, and we're asking our nonprofits to do less with less and to reduce the funding, I think will be untenable even in future years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further comments, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to say that I intend to vote for this increase, and I want to thank Amber and Rob for coming by, and we had a very lengthy conversation about this as well. And, they're important partners of ours. There is, only so much that the city can do as government, and our nonprofits step up and provide invaluable services to our community. And, I just want to see us support them in every way that we can. There needs to be some additional conversation. I think everybody agrees to that. If we can increase budgets, we need to look at that. But certainly our first priority is the funding for those programs and services that the city provides. And then we look at what we can do for our partner nonprofit agencies that do so much valuable work in our community as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Before we take a vote, it will be appropriate to ask for public comment. Before we ask for public comment, it's appropriate for the city attorney to provide comment. But will you also touch on, this is a little different
Yes.
because of the final budget hearing, why we are taking this up now and how that impacts the script and what we need to do?
That's right. So, Mr. Mayor, right, we have a motion on the table right now to increase the CHSP dollars, which is essentially a motion to adjust the overall budget. And then we will then use that adjusted budget for the remainder of the hearing to go through the steps to actually approve the budget. So we should take public comment on this specific issue, which is, should we increase the CHSP funding by that amount? We also then should follow that with an additional motion for approval of the fiscal year funding allocations for human service partnerships as adjusted, with authorization for the city manager or his designee to enter into service contracts with nonprofit providers. We can take that as two motions since there's already a motion pending on the table.
Excellent. So I'll call for public comment, and then we'll take a vote on the motion that's on the table. I will come back to you for specific language of what needs to be done in the second motion. We'll entertain that motion.
That's perfect, yes.
Sounds great. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on the motion that's currently on the table regarding an increase in the CHSP funding?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Mayor. We don't have any speakers here in person. We have two individuals who signed up to speak virtually, but those signups were made with the information that was available on the budget, so clearly expressing an interest in the overall budget. But this would be new information, so I
Okay.
do not believe they are.
Is there anybody here wishing to speak on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and entertain the motion that's on the table. Excuse me, made by the mayor, seconded by the mayor pro tem. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Madam Attorney, put us in the proper posture.
Will do.
For the second motion.
Yes. So is there a motion for approval of the fiscal year 25 funding allocations for human service partnerships as adjusted, with authorization for the city manager or his designee to enter into service contracts with nonprofit providers?
I will make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the mayor pro tem. Any comment? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. Mr. Cook, do we have anybody virtually that'd like to speak on this specific motion?
I do not believe so.
Any cards?
No, sir. No.
Excellent. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you for walking us through that, Madam Attorney. Mr. Wiggin, if you could keep on with the budget presentation, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. The last slide in the deck is just directing the city attorney to conduct the legislatively required process that we must go through, and it's to take the actions listed under the public hearing steps that she will walk us through. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Manager, any final comments on the proposed budget?
No, sir.
Let me take this opportunity to thank you, Robert, and your team for once again an amazing job. You are a nationally award-winning and recognized team. The process is nationally award-winning and recognized as well. You spend the entire fiscal year working to this moment to bring a balanced budget before us. You've done a great job, and we certainly do appreciate all the hard work that you and the team have put into it. All right, at this time, let me pass it to the Madam Attorney. If you will walk us through all the legal requirements
I will.
to pass this budget.
I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Florida Statute Section 200.065 requires that 2 public hearings be held for the adoption of the fiscal year 2025 budget. This is the second and final public hearing. Neither the date of the first hearing, September 11, nor today's date conflicted with any county commission or school board meeting hearing dates. There are, as you know, several steps that we must go through tonight pursuant to the Truth in Millage Act. The Truth in Millage Act requires certain steps be taken in a certain order and requires certain things to be read into the record. Those steps are in the agenda item if you want to follow them there, but the first item is to read into the record the following. The final millage rate for fiscal year 2025 is 4.4200 mills for the City of Tallahassee and 1.0000 mil for the Downtown Improvement Authority. which is more than the aggregate rolled back rate of 4.2013 by 5.7041%. Attachment A to the agenda item is Resolution Number 24R-43, which states the percentage that the final millage rate is above the rolled back rate. Now it is time to allow public input on the city's proposed final millage of 4.4200 and the city's proposed final budget as adjusted by your previous action. This final hearing was advertised in the Tallahassee Democrat on Friday, September 20, 2024, in compliance with Florida statutes, again, Section 200.065. If anyone has signed up to give public comment, whether in person or virtually, on either the final millage or the final budget for the city, they should speak at this time.
Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
Mayor, we have two speakers. The first is Delilah Pierre, followed by Franklin Perez. Okay. Delilah Pierre has not connected. How about Franklin Perez? Then we will move to Franklin Perez as our only speaker.
You will be keeping track of the time? since
Yes,
it's
sir.
Virtually and.
Hi, this is Franklin Perez. Can you hear me?
We can hear.
Hello, can you
Yes, sir.
hear me?
Your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Great. My name is Franklin Perez. I live in Seminole and Hillsborough counties. Address 4250 Lafayette Trail, Suite 212-170, Oviedo, Florida 32765. I demand the following from the Tallahassee City Commissioners. 1, reject the $135 million Tallahassee Police Station. 2, no more money to the Tallahassee Police Headquarters. No more funding to the Tallahassee Police Department. 3, restore and reinstate the Citizens Police Review Board and reverse the city charter restricting its right to stronger civilian oversight. 4, have the Citizens Police Review Board review Tallahassee police officers Kirsten Oliver and Margaret Mooch's conduct when it is restored. 5, advocate for a retrial for Calvin Riley, and the Tallahassee Police Department released an official apology to the Riley family. The treatment of Calvin Riley is a perfect example of why we need civilian oversight of police in our cities. Not only is the lack of accountability for the officers responsible for Calvin's arrest concerning, it is also extremely concerning that the Police Benevolent Association openly antagonized and threatened the individual who released the evidence of misconduct from Tallahassee police officers. Tallahassee City's mayor and the commission as a whole talked at previous meetings of using diplomacy to help citizens who don't want a gas station near their property. The city commission admitted they didn't have any outright influence to change this project, but could still use their connections and influence to pressure the property owners. They refuse, the Tallahassee City Commission refuses to use its power to help the Riley family seek a retrial for their case, hypocritically claiming they have no power to make the court speed up their process. The city of Tallahassee as a whole has a history of disrespecting police brutality victims and their families. Hiring Police Chief Lawrence Rebel in and of itself is a slap in the face to George Lil Nuke Williams' family, who Rebel played a role in murdering in the 1990s. The city of Tallahassee needs to do a better job of showing respect and deference to victims of police brutality. The Tallahassee City Mayor needs to, at the very least, speak in favor of the Riley family and show an ounce of empathy. What we need is a Police Accountability Act that would require the formation of civilian review boards with real teeth to oversee state, county, and city police departments with the full powers to independently investigate, discipline, and terminate problem police officers. We also need to do away with qualified immunity because it gives police officers a virtual license to kill. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Mr. Perez, I hope you all stay safe down there in Hillsborough County with the impending hurricane that's coming our way. Our next speaker, please.
That's the last speaker we have, Mayor.
All right, do we have anybody in chambers that would like to speak on the proposed budget? Anybody in chambers? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, excuse me, Madam Attorney.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if there are no additional speakers, that concludes public input on the city's proposed final millage and the city's proposed final budget. Now we will allow public input on the Downtown Improvement Authority's proposed final millage rate of 1.000 and the Downtown Improvement Authority's proposed final budget. This final hearing was advertised in the Tallahassee Democrat on Friday, September 20, 2024, in compliance with Florida Statutes 200.065. Again, if anyone has signed up to give public comment, whether in person or virtually, on either the final millage or the final budget for the Downtown Improvement Authority, they should be given the opportunity to speak at this time.
Okay. Do we have any public comment, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on the proposed budget millage rate of the Downtown Improvement Authority? Seeing none. Madam Attorney.
That concludes public input on the DIA's proposed final millage and the DIA's proposed final budget, assuming there are no additional speakers on those items. At this time, Mr. Mayor, we need a motion for approval of the city's final millage rate of 4.4200 mils as reflected in Resolution Number 24-R-43, the title of which reads as follows. Resolution Number 24-R-43, a resolution establishing the millage rate for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30, 2025, as 4.4200 mils for the City of Tallahassee and 1.0000 mil for the Downtown Improvement Authority, which is greater than the aggregate rolled back rate of 4.2013 by 5.70% and providing an effective date. This final aggregate millage rate is more than the rolled back rate of 4.2013 by 5.7041%. Is there a motion for approval of the city's final millage rate of 4.4200 mil?
I will proudly make the motion as mayor. Is there a second to the motion?
Second, proudly.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Now is the opportunity for the commission to discuss and vote on the motion.
Open for discussion. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the interest of time, I'll just refer folks to the first public hearing for my comments in opposition.
Other comments? Mayor Pro
Thank you,
Tem.
Mr. Mayor. I certainly want to say in the 10 years that I've been on the commission, if memory serves me correctly, this is the first time that we've had a rollback rate in our millage. Robert, am I correct there? And so that's something that we certainly can be proud of and let this community know that when it comes to issues like the taxes that we assess, that we're serious about it, and when there's ever an opportunity to reduce the tax burden on our citizens, we are certainly willing to do that. The other issue that I wanted to raise, because Robert, I don't know if you're going to get to it in the budget, you probably will, is the amount of money that we have invested in public safety. It is paying dividends in our community. Lives are being saved, property is being protected because we've got more officers patrolling our streets and neighborhoods, and that's what I'm hearing from where I live on the south side of Tallahassee, that people are pleased with the fact that we've got more public safety, we're investing more in public safety, and we're seeing the results in the reduced numbers in terms of the crime that's occurring in our community. And certainly that will benefit our local residents and families, but it says a whole lot to those who would be looking to visit our capital city, that we're serious about addressing crime and that they can feel safe when they come to Tallahassee, the capital of the state of Florida. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Mr. Mayor, just real quickly, we just all voted 5-0 to add to the budget. So quite naturally, we just added to the budget to make make CHSP whole. I would hope that we would have a 5-0 vote on the budget. Since we just added to it together, that we should vote on it together. If not, I just think that it just bears that we should be explaining, if this is not a 5-0 vote, there should be some explanation as to why.
Commissioner Porter for comment.
I'm happy to offer that explanation. I have, since I was elected, advocated for increased funding for our nonprofits. There is more than one way to define public safety. I'm not sure the point of those comments, Commissioner Williams-Cox. I don't find them helpful or respectful or collegial. I can support, I'll speak for myself, those changes and vote against the millage rate. I have said over and over, it is a matter of priorities. There is no reason that we cannot give that increase and more with the budget that we had, without increasing the millage rate and reprioritizing our spending. So I don't see that to be the case. And I want to make that abundantly clear. Thank you.
Okay, any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the proposed motion on the table for the budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
In the budget,
The millage.
the motion, the millage rate passes 3-2 with Commissioner Porter and Commissioner Matlow in dissent. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, we need a motion for approval of the city's final fiscal year 2025 budget as adjusted by your previous action and reflected in resolution number 24-R-44AA, the title of which reads as follows: Resolution number 24-R-44AA, a resolution adopting the operating and capital budgets for the City of Tallahassee and the operating budget for the Downtown Improvement Authority for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30, 2025, designating the sources of revenue and set appropriations and providing an effective date. Is there a motion for approval of the city's final fiscal year 2025 budget, again, as adjusted by your previous action this evening?
I will probably make the motion as the mayor. Is there a second?
I will second that and point out that there is a reduction in the millage rate in that motion.
Correct. There is a second to the motion. Commissioner Porter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify, Madam Attorney, I believe I heard you also mention the DIA, but is this only the city's operating budget?
Yes, I'm sorry. The resolution includes both, but we are just, yes. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay.
We are just now voting on the city's budget.
Okay, thank you.
But there's a single resolution that covers both of them, so I read the title in, but thank you for calling out.
Okay, thank you.
See no further comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The budget passes 3-2 with Commissioner Porter and Commissioner Matlow in dissent. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a motion for approval of the Downtown Improvement Authority's final millage rate of 1.0000 mil, as well as for approval of resolution number 24-R-43, which resolution addresses the millage rate for both the city and the DIA?
I will make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes 5-0. Madam Attorney.
And now we need a motion for approval of the Downtown Improvement Authority's final fiscal year 2025 budget, and again, approval of resolution number 24-R-44AA, which addresses the budgets of both the city and the DIA.
I will make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To summarize, the City Commission has now approved the millage rate for both the city and the DIA, and the expenditures and obligations of the City of Tallahassee and the DIA for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30, 2025, designating the sources of revenue and appropriations. That concludes the Commission's required actions on the fiscal year 2025 budget for the City of Tallahassee and the Downtown Improvement Authority.
Excellent. Seeing no other business before us, we stand adjourned. Everyone, please be safe.